My name is Will Conley. I'm your county commissioner. I've had the great honor of representing this area for 9 years now. This is always a strong subdivision, a very active subdivision. So I'm glad to see all y'all here today. Over the past few months, as most of y'all know, there was legislation proposed on what is called the Needmore Ranch, which is down Fulton Road. There on the Blanco. It used to be old McCoy Ranch, and then McCoy sold it to John O'Quinn, and when Mr. O'Quinn passed in a car wreck a couple years ago in Houston, the family trust sold the ranch, which is about a little over 5,000 acres, to the LaMantia family, which are business owners down from the valley in beer distribution business. They buy ranches, and host events, and do different things. And I know they've bought some ranches here in Texas, and they've bought some ranches out in Colorado before. And they purchased this ranch, and I met with Mr. LaMantia and his consultants. Probably, I don't know if I hold me on timelines here, but probably sometime in mid-February, and actually met with his consultants first. And there's a lobbyist out of San Antonio and an attorney who is an expert water attorney in this area. And they said, "Well, we got something real quick for you. If you could come up and see what we have. If you're at the Capitol, their offices are next door." And so I stopped by and visited and said, "We would really appreciate the county passing this resolution." Started to read the resolution and talked about a support for a MUD on the Needmore Ranch, and that they were going to propose legislation and wanted the county's support. Now, to back up a little bit, special districts in general was created in law in our state, Chapter 49 of our water code. They go back as early as 1904. MUDs go back as early as 1970s. Special districts are political subdivisions of the state. And what that means is it's a government entity. I was very disappointed in some people's argument about this is a private property right issue. It's not a private property right issue. Quite frankly, it's a ridiculous statement. If you read the law, read Chapter 49 of the Water Development Code, and you tell me if that sounds like any private property right that any of you ever had or will have into the future. The reason for it was a reason why the laws were developed, and there are some good special districts out there, some good MUDs, was to fill that gap of infrastructure between municipalities and unincorporated areas where the municipalities didn't have the willingness to send out water and wastewater lines. That's predominantly what it's used for economic development. And it's been used in our state many different places. Harris County in Houston are the king of special districts. Woodlands, for example, is a special district. It's a giant MUD that created the Woodlands and those types of developments. So it's a tool of government. It is not an individual private property right. Our new senator of 100 days felt like it was upon herself to sponsor this legislation. Traditionally, in this county, this is not law, but this is a tradition, and for good reason, because these things have large impacts on communities. The state representative and the state senator won't sponsor this type of legislation without local support. And typically what happens is a landowner or developer will come to our state rep, for example, and say, "I'd like to create a MUD." And you can do it two ways. You can do it through the legislative session, which is pretty quick, and it's just simply legislation. Or you can go through TCEQ, which there's more of an abundant process. Plans have to be developed and designs and things of this nature. And both the local governments have a role to play at TCEQ as well. And so they decided to go the legislative way. our legislatures decided not to ask for local consent. And I don't know what Senator Campbell's policy is. Like I said, she hasn't been there all that long. But Representative Isaac had had that policy since he's been in office, as did Representative Rose before him, and Representative Green before him. So anyways, they read the resolution, told them that it was a very big deal, that would have a huge impact on our community, and that I was going to have to talk to Mr. LaMantia himself. Met Greg, spoke to him, and you know, in his words, you know, what he was trying to do, what his family is trying to do, is increase the value of their land on that ranch, so that when a day may come that they want to sell it, or they want to put a conservation easement over it, or whatever they want to do with it, they get a much larger tax write-off than what they would have done to it just be, you know, raw ranch land. I don't have that kind of money to understand how those things completely work, so I just took him at his word and assumed that that's what his interest was. Anyways, got to working on it. Judge Cobb and I wrote many letters of opposition to the legislation for two reasons. One, just a simple process of believing that local governments, when you're dealing with something that is this large and this permanent, this is now the largest special district in Hays County. It's one of the largest special districts in Central Texas. Again, it is a political subdivision, meaning traditionally, if you read Chapter 49, they have eminent domain authority, they have policing authority, they have taxing authority, they have any authority you could think of besides the justice system. That's what they are. That's what they're created. They're run by boards. The boards happen to be the landowners who own land at the time in which it's created. So it is a governing body run by a single entity, a single family in this situation. We have lots of concerns out here with stuff like that. Obviously, we have water concerns. We have water quality concerns. That ranch is one of the more beautiful spots in Hays County, adjacent to the Blanco River, adjacent to this subdivision and other subdivisions. And as y'all all know, we're all drawing off a very sensitive aquifer in the Trinity. And in particular, this part of the Wimberley Valley has seemed to have some of the biggest troubles with that, particularly when you go over to Sunny Mountain and Falconwood. Over the last few years, many of those residents have had a lot of issues with their wells and had to invest a lot of money to go quite a bit deeper than what they were. To my knowledge, this subdivision has been okay. I know of a handful of issues, but for the most part, most of your wells have performed well to my understanding. But they're also very deep in this area, considering. So Senator Campbell never responded to the county, and that's unfortunate, and something we'll have to take up with her. But the county had serious issues, myself and Judge Cobb, by not having that correspondence, particularly since she knows our area so well. Not being from this area, being our senator for 100 days, it was very disappointing to me personally, and I think to this community that she moved forward with something like this. Again, it was the size and scale of if you develop that ranch strictly off county rules and regs on wells and septics, you could put 1,600 lots back there. 1,600? 1,600. If you developed it, I thought the number was larger than that. Well, if you developed it with a wastewater system, county density is controlled by wastewater.
Okay.
If you develop a wastewater system, you can have as many as 16,000 to 18,000 people back there, which is the size of the Wimberley Valley. To have something of that scale and that permanence, and to not work with local officials and local community, again, was something I've never witnessed before, and something that I'm still honestly quite upset about. But we were fortunate that that Representative Isaac did work with us, and Jason maintains that he felt it was a private property right. I maintain that it's not. But we set those differences aside, and we worked on amending this legislation to try to make it better. It was going to go through. Senator Campbell had already created legislation. Representative Isaac had to deal with it. It was in a very bad situation. Plus, to be honest with you, it's a very powerful family that has connections at the highest levels of the state government, from our governor's office to lieutenant governor to the speaker of the House to every senator and representative in the valley. I think their families donated over $2 million to state politicians over the last 10 years. So I consider myself a realist, and when I saw that writing on the wall, we quickly took a position here at the county of trying to get anything we can in the legislation to make it more amenable to the people that live here and the people we represent. And at the end of the day, when it was all said and done, of course I wish the legislation never existed, but since it was going through, we were able to get Representative Isaac to make some very important amendments to this legislation. And next time y'all see Jason, you should mention this to him, because it is very important. I thought I just highlighted a little bit, part of the preamble of MUDs is the district is created to serve a public purpose and benefit. Again, if you read Chapter 49, there's nothing about private property rights in Chapter 49. These are public tools, governmental tools to accomplish certain goals. But there's three important things that we were able to get into the legislation. First and foremost, that ranch cannot develop into anything significant without an alternative water resource. That's huge. That's really big for our area, and really big and important to the Wimberley Valley. And to be honest, quite frankly, should be of high level of interest for y'all, because that water would be drawn from this table here. It would have a huge impact on your wells. So,
what is the level of interest?
Ma'am?
Can you define the level of interest?
Define the level of interest.
You said it can't be developed to a significant level of it.
For example, I mean, they put 5 or 6 ranch homes out there. That's not going to trigger anything like this, but a platted large development that will. So anything that's really going to impact y'all's wells and the aquifer. Let me find the.
Excuse me.
Yes,
did
sir.
we pass this already, or is this
Yes,
still?
sir.
It has been passed.
Yes, sir.
So this is a done deal.
Yes, sir. It is a done deal. So again, they have to use an alternative water resource. I left a copy of the legislation here that y'all can have. I'm trying to find, okay. The district may not exercise the power of the eminent domain except for the purpose of importing surface water or non-local groundwater into the district. For the purpose of this section, non-local groundwater includes only groundwater that is withdrawn from a source outside the Edwards and the Trinity aquifer. So that means none of our local water can be used to develop that ranch in any significant capacity.
They can't get around that in any way?
No, the only way they can get around that now is if they change the legislation. The Glen Rose is a piece of the Trinity aquifer.
Okay.
So,
now, in the newspaper, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, it said that he was interested in Lee County and Bastrop County water. That's what put in the newspaper.
okay.
That's where I read that.
Okay.
And then, as well as last weekend in the newspaper, so it was Sunday's paper.
Is that right? There's a lot of entities
Lee
looking at
County
that water.
and Bastrop County are opposing the selling that water.
Yes,
So
sir.
they got a big fight up there as well.
Yes, there are a lot of them are. There's a lot of interest over there in those counties in that water and that resource right now. So this ranch would have to have an alternative water resource. So that is important. This ranch does not have eminent domain authority except to bring in an alternative water resource. So that's important when we're talking about your cul-de-sacs here, because when Mr. O'Quinn bought that property and that deal was done with the county years ago, as most of y'all know, he kept both sides of the road to where he could control that access, and that property goes right up to y'all's cul-de-sacs in this subdivision. If eminent domain would have been there, my fear would have been, as this thing developed out, they would have been able to go through y'all's subdivisions with ingress and egress thoroughfares. So we got that taken out.
So you're saying that with the eminent domain, they won't be able to come down?
Yes, sir, that's correct. That's correct. Also, annexation. Again, these are what is called political subdivisions. These are governments. They have many of the same powers that traditional governments have. Annexation is one of them. In Chapter 49 of the Water Code, you read about annexation. It's a simple majority vote, meaning 50% plus one. So 5 years from now, 50%, and one of you back here decided you wanted to be part of this district for whatever reason, you could have a simple vote, and the Saddle Ridge subdivision would be part of the district. We changed that to a 2/3. So this area cannot be annexed without a supermajority of this subdivision deciding that it's in y'all's own best interest to do so.
And the vote is strictly Saddle Ridge?
Well, it's for everybody, but it's a 2/3 already.
Is that 2/3 of the existing residents that live
It would
here at
be-
the time of
it
the
would be-
vote, or
yes,
just?
ma'am. It would be 2/3 of, like if you were going to annex Saddle Ridge, what you do is you describe the meets and bounds around the subdivision, and that would be the annexed area. If the people within that annexed area would then have a
So it'd have to
vote.
be 2/3 of the residents, not 2/3 of the people attending
Yes,
a
ma'am.
meeting or filling out a
Yes, ma'am,
form?
that's right.
Okay.
No, it would be an official certified vote.
Okay.
The district may not add land by petition unless then all the landowners under the section, and then it says section 49.302 Water Code, unless the petition required under that section is signed by the owners of 2/3 majority of the assessed value of land in the defined area. That's what I was talking about, the meets and bounds areas. The defined area described by the petition. So this area cannot be annexed by this MUD without a 2/3 petition, and that goes for any area that it's adjacent to. Another important piece that was in here, we have water, we have limitations of eminent domain, we have annexation limitations, we have some more limitations on eminent domain. That's about it. The rest of it is just traditional MUD language. Some of the other things that the county asked for that we thought were important was that they would adopt in the legislation water quality standards of the city of Wimberley or of the city of San Marcos. County governments in the state of Texas don't have water quality authority. It's not given to us by the state. And so we felt that was important. That was not accepted. We also asked for a road fund if the development were to ever mature, something in which we could try to address Fulton Road and Little Arkansas, which would cost the county taxpayers probably about $20 million to improve that roadway to something that would be reasonable to carry 15 to 20,000 people. Those were turned down. Trying to think of some other things. So at any rate, this legislation has passed. It's been signed by the governor, and it's real. And so my last discussions with Mr. LaMantia were about 3 weeks ago, and told him that when things settle down a little bit, probably in a month or two, probably midsummer, Greg said he's coming back into town for a while, that we visit, talk about the future, talk about some of those things got put on hold. I wasn't very welcome over there for some time, and continue to work on issues out here. So let me stop there and just try to answer any else questions.
So what you're saying that when you try to block the county taxpayers paying for the ranch, that if they do decide to develop this, that we will in fact pay for the development of Fulton Ranch Road. His county will pay for that.
Yes,
$1 million.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have talked to several of our elected people. Over the years, I've been talking to them about Dan Patrick, for one. What I asked them is, finding good, you want to develop these areas and stuff. Why not do the traffic impact studies and have these developers pay that up front? They will not touch it.
No.
And I know why. It's all about that.
No,
It's all it's about.
They have a lot
Because
of
those guys are not going to pay that money to have that developed.
Right.
Taxpayers going to pay it.
They have a lot of influence at the legislature.
Say it again, please.
They have a lot of influence at the legislature, and when we ever talk about impact fees, in fact, we've actually tried to come up with different words than impact fees, just where we could maybe get out of committee, but I'm not talking about small mom and pop type developments, but when you have these large, massive developments, many county officials think that it's reasonable to ask them for a contribution to improve those sections of roadway that are directly impacted by them, and I happen to be one of those. So, but we never get out of committee with that legislation.
Yeah, I understand that. What you're saying.
So
But
is
yes, that will be on the taxpayers. Yes, ma'am.
For those of us whose properties back up to Fulton Ranch Road, how will that affect us?
If the road was improved.
Or in any way, just that subdivision being back there, the road,
Yes, ma'am.
anything,
Yes,
can they get in past our property line in any
No,
way?
no. It would, any improvements would stop at the county right of way.
Okay.
Unless the county went through a right-of-way expansion, in which you'd go through traditional processes similar to what we did over here on 12 a year ago, acquiring that right-of-way and paying people for their property and moving utilities and all the stuff that's involved. So, the family still tells me they don't have any intentions of developing this property. I kind of believe them. I don't think they're developers. I think they have much better business than developing that property. But what I do believe, what I personally believe, and it's just my personal belief, is that they'll play on that ranch until they get tired of it, and then they'll sell that ranch, and that ranch will have a huge entitlement of a Court Blanche MUD on top of it that will make it very enticing to the large private public companies to develop. And that's what I was finally able to drive home to our state representative, that I don't care what the family's telling you. It will come a day where it's in their interest to sell that ranch, and with a Court Blanche MUD entitlement on top of it, you might as well put a big red circle on that place. Because the main reason you get a MUD is because you have the opportunity for municipal financing. You get public financing. When the county goes out and issues bonds, for example, for roads or whatever we're issuing debt for, every jurisdiction within the metes and bounds of the county, just like any of our personal credit reports or anything, is calculated into that evaluation, into that score. Just like any of our personal assets would be, just like all our liabilities are. School districts are in there. cities are in there, special districts are in there because they're political entities. So it has a much broader impact than just any personal private land issue. We pick up these things in our credit reports as a county. They have impacts, good and bad, on the county's credit rating, which has an impact on the amount of interest that we're paying on bonds that y'all are all paying for. So it's a big deal, and particularly one of this size. Yes, sir.
One of those, at the meeting, there was a gal that was associated with the springs, the Aquarena Springs. And this goes to the credibility of the gentleman you were speaking to, the owner of the property. There was a statement made that a couple of activities that happened on the property without permitting. Has that been investigated, and is there validity to her claim? That
Yes, so there is some validity, and the county's investigating that.
Well, that goes to credibility of the statements.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
If he's violating that,
Sure.
what else would he violate?
Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. This is an open investigation, and we don't do that until it's closed. But some of the things that he needed permits for, he inherited when he bought the ranch. Mr. Quinn did not get permits for that have been discovered. Some things he has added. So the county is investigating that. Our people have been out there. I've been out there personally with them, and we're going through that process and making sure that they're permitted properly and making sure that they're in compliance with the law.
Have they been cooperating then?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
In the future, say when all this kind of quiets down and we all ready to settle down or new people come in,
Right.
can there be amendments made to this bill kind of quietly, and then we all wake up one day and it's like, holy cow.
Anything can be done to the state legislature.
Okay.
So,
Doesn't have to be.
this language is extremely powerful, and where anytime you're reading law of government where it says shall, that's powerful. Where it says may, you need to kind of wonder what's going on.
Yeah, I brought that to their attention, and they kind of wrote me off on that. I sent a letter to both of them,
Yes, sir.
and they wouldn't even respond to that language, to the shall language.
Yes, sir.
I think it's-
Well, fortunately, Jason got the shall in here on the water, and that was important. Another part that you reminded me, something else that the county asked for, considering the family's ability to maneuver through the state legislature, was that if the legislation were to be changed, that they had to have consent of Hays County, but they didn't accept that. So, y'all understand what I'm saying? If you go, say 2 years from now, we go back in session, they throw out an amendment, they would have to have the consent of the county government in order to do so, and they didn't feel comfortable with that.
But yeah, after that meeting, I think he pretty much saw that. I think Sylvia had her hand
I
up.
have a
Yes,
question.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sorry.
You mentioned that he has purchased other ranches in Texas and in Colorado. What has he done with those? Has he developed or what?
No, it's a working ranch down in the valley, and I think the one in Colorado, he did do some conservation, and they did do some development, I believe. Yes,
I read
some
he
combination of
overdeveloped it.
That's what I read too. He developed 4,000 out of 5,000 acres, something like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
And he
In
overdeveloped it.
Colorado.
And when he says conservation, he wants to talk specifically about conservation. You know, again, if I wanted to get the highest return on that property, I would try to raise money for conservation along the river, all the way to Little Arkansas, and then would use that as a park amenity to develop out the other 4,000 acres. And you have this beautiful landscape, Blanco River Park, that was paid for with conservation dollars off the tax rolls, and you just created a huge amenity for 4,000 acres for people to use to develop. If I was a developer and looking to do, that's what I would do to it.
Speaking of Little Arkansas,
yes, ma'am.
I understand that was a public road, and through the last owner, that was allowed to be made a private road. And so you cut the public off from that. And that was one of our accesses to San Marcos that was then cut off. What can be done about reacquiring that public road?
Nothing. That was
Nothing?
no.
No?
It was a private easement, a public easement, and you know, like a lot of Western Hays County, you know, technically they're easements down those roads. They're not necessarily public roads, but they're public easements, and there's a difference. For example, most people on roads we travel in Wimberley own to the middle of the road. That's their private property, but we have public easements to go through them. That was sealed and done early 2000s, and Fulton Road was built and accepted by the county. So that's sealed and approved and can't go back.
And when you look on the recent Hays County Transportation Plan, there's a new emergency road, but it's a few acres back from the river. So it's really like giving LaMantia. If you build a whole new road to San Marcos, because we gave away the original one that the public owned, and then the county is going to plan to build a whole new road just a few acres back to San Marcos, that's prime riverfront property for him to sell. Who exactly came up with that decision to put an emergency road just a few acres back from an existing road?
I did. And
why is that?
My colleague, Commissioner Wisnett, and I worked on that. We have concerns of emergency access, both for this area and for the area on the other side of the map. Those maps aren't drawn to scale. What we were doing is identifying on our transportation thoroughfare plan that we would like to develop an emergency access lane strictly for emergency reasons and not a public access roadway. And that is specifically in our thoroughfare plan like that. To give us the ability, if we can work with the landowner to develop something that could evacuate several thousand people from this area or several thousand people from the other side. Y'all may recall about 3 years ago they had a bad fire back there, and a lot of people were trapped. And so that is strictly a public safety issue.
It doesn't make sense to me to build a whole brand new road where a road has never existed before, instead of using an existing road that actually is connected from the same road to the same road in San Marcos.
Right. It's a line on a map to show the county's intention to work on emergency access there. We haven't even gone back there to tell you exactly where it would be. We have to start off getting it on the map to start having those conversations. But,
I think the residents would probably really like it if we could use the existing road. That would be my guess.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. But and that may very well be the case. But the reason that it's on the map is for emergency.
I mean, LaMantia gets several cities. I was thinking of it as one city. He gets one city, but you mentioned cities, plural. He could create cities there. So maybe the taxpayers can get the road back that runs along the river.
Yes, ma'am.
Then it could be like River Road.
Yeah.
Just to clarify on the recreation trail, Mr. LaMantia owns right up to the rocks down at the end.
Right.
Okay, so he can move the rocks off his property and connect
No.
on Mission Trail.
No. One, that would have to be approved by the county because it's coming onto the public road system.
Right. But Fulton Ranch Road is not public road.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, that's what I thought, but that.
But there's private.
So just that 50 feet of dirt right there.
There's public right of way there,
Oh.
and then there's private land there as well.
Okay.
So what you have, I don't remember the exact setbacks off the Fulton Road, but once you get on both sides of the road, you get past what was owned by Hays County, then you're back on the LaMantia's private property, and that goes all the way to the edge of pavement, to my understanding, on places like Mission Trail.
Okay, but Saddle Ridge owns up to the rocks or something like that. So
Yes, sir.
even if it's an inch.
Well, actually, the county owns it.
Yeah.
The county owns it.
Okay, so
It's
the
county.
county
It's
would have
county.
to approve, would have to approve opening that easement
Yes, sir.
if he,
And why wouldn't they approve it? I mean, what would keep them from approving it?
you,
Well, no.
it's not good.
It has to come to
You're not there.
Yeah.
And how many,
There's 4 county commissioners and a county judge,
so there's basically
you're
5
right.
votes?
There's 5 votes, 3 is the majority vote.
How many's on your side?
And,
At this
I
point,
usually get through the county what I want to get through the county. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, there's 2 people that represent you out here from the county, myself and the county judge. And,
But at some point, you're going to be representing those other people also.
sure.
That's where the problem is. That's the biggest fear that I have, is that all of a sudden, this becomes...
Rancho Well.
Yeah, really, just a Rancho Well.
Rancho
A
Well.
spur, to get across, because, clearly somebody that lives just on the other side of where, like you said, Mission Trail ends, or whatever it is, and they want to go to Canyon Lake, it's a whole lot easier just to come right through here and go right on up. I mean, that's the real...
Yes.
The issue, the water's a big issue.
Yes.
And so is this road thing.
Now, in all fairness, with taking out the annexation or making the annexation a very high hurdle, and taking out the eminent domain authority, if that is going to be done, it is going to be done and approved by your county government. Now, in all fairness, that could happen today if the county government decided to do that. In other words, at least it's within your representation, if somebody else isn't imposing their will onto you. Again, if it was up to me, this would never happen, but it was going to happen. And
Because I believe in 07 or 08, didn't somebody try to open up Mission Trail and Canyon Gap? Because I have a letter from Cecil Gibson that where Saddle Ridge Fall didn't actually won.
Oh, I think, somebody, I don't know about a fight. I mean, somebody mentioned that and sent a letter to my office, and we told them we weren't interested. That was about the end of it. That's really the extent of it all. Who knows what happens from here? We'll just have to wait and see, and I'll keep working with them and try to get as much information as possible. And of course, keep sharing it with y'all as I get that information. If you have any questions.
When you've had your conversations with the family, Greg LaMantia, and you got a good feel about his integrity as far as what the family's intent was, what is their plan with that property at this point? Are they expanding facilities? Are they building out? Or
No.
are they basically just occupying what was there?
They're basically occupying what was there.
Okay.
And again, this is pure speculation. They hold their cards pretty close to their chest, and again, my thought is they just had a huge entitlement put on this ranch. That's very valuable. My thought is they're going to use this ranch for their family, for entertainment, as they have been for the last couple of years, and until they're tired of it and find a different ranch and want to go someplace else, or there's something driving in the market that would provide a very high return for their family for that piece of property. They spend a pretty penny on that ranch, so they're going to have to get a very good buyer to get the dollars back out of that ranch.
Central Texas is one of the fastest growing communities right now.
It
So,
is. It is. Hays County is the 3rd fastest in the United States.
Developers are looking.
Yes, ma'am, they are. And that's what I was talking about, that being a huge bullseye, and having that entitlement there.
That entitlement is huge.
Where before, if you did not have a MUD, to get infrastructure out to this part of the valley would almost be unfeasible. But because of the public financing in the MUD, it makes it possible, and it makes it a reality. Yes, sir.
I have a question. How would the owner have accepted to change his mind if you accept those amendments to the legislation?
Say the first part again.
That I find it kind of bizarre that they put a piece of legislature on the table and says you approve it or not, and then suddenly there's an amendment accepted by those who submitted the legislature. Now, why would they have accepted? What is the trade-off?
I don't know. That's something you'll have to ask Representative Isaac. I think my honest opinion is as Jason started to realize more and more the powers that these things have. And
I didn't think you knew what a MUD was to begin with when I first talked.
Yes, sir. I'm not going to comment on that.
You didn't. I honestly didn't. I've got a long. We had a fight going on for over 3 weeks with this via email, and I've still got all.
Look,
you guys know what to do.
I'll tell you this. I think about 35% of our legislatures understand what happens on the local level, and I think about 65% of them don't have a clue about what happens on the local level.
I don't think he knows what Chapter 49 is in the water code.
Well,
Because I mentioned that to him.
The only conversation, I'll tell you this story, the only conversation I had with our senator, I do a lot in transportation in Central Texas and the region and chair some regional boards. And so I spent a lot of time with the legislature talking about transportation and testifying before committees on transportation. And our new senator is on the Transportation Committee in the Senate. And I was there testifying about a bill for Central Texas. And got done with my testimony and was leaving the Capitol. And she came running out of that committee hearing. And she grabs me by the shoulder. She goes, Will, she goes, I don't appreciate all the county's opposition to this MUD legislation. And she said, it's causing me and my office a lot of problems. And I said, well, we don't appreciate the legislation, Senator, and if you would talk with the county and work with us, we can make it very clear to you why this isn't a good idea. And she said, well, she goes, you see, Will, I'm a conservative, and I believe in private property rights, and this is a private property right issue. And I respectfully told her that she should read the laws in the state of Texas, chapter 49, 54, 56, and that she may have a different perspective on what individual private property rights look like and what tools of government like this look like. And told her that the county will remain in opposition until something changes. And we did. And that's the extent of any conversation I had, our county judge had. We sent 4 or 5 different letters of correspondence and never even received one back.
Paul Rose, I hope she enjoys her last term of office.
Yeah. She's from Columbus, Texas. Moved to Bronxville 6 months ago, and beat an incumbent senator in a Republican primary in the middle of the summer that probably had 28,000 people vote, and that's a district that represents half of San Antonio all the way to Austin. Has 800,000 people in it. I had more people vote in the county commissioner's race in 2008 than nominated our senator.
When is she up for re-election?
She drew the short straw. She's up this time, 2014.
2014.
But to be honest with y'all, I'm not trying to be partisan here, but it's a Republican seat. It was drawn to be a Republican seat. So if you want to have any influence on who your senator is, I suggest you go vote Republican primary, because once it gets to a general election, it's almost not possible to win that seat.
That's how she got the seat.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's true. It's true. So, but I think we have a long ways to go there. I don't know if she'll ever understand the significance of this. In fairness, I want to say that I think Representative Isaac came a long way. I think he learned a lot about special districts. I think we learned a lot how to work better together. And again, I would prefer this not go through. If it went through, I would have preferred some more amendments. But what Jason did on his own to get into this bill from what the county suggested is significant and important.
Well, Commissioner Conley, all he had to do was oppose his own bill. He'd have been dead.
Yeah.
That's all he had to do.
Well, look,
There's no,
very influential
you can't,
family.
there's no way of saying this guy did us a favor.
Yeah.
He didn't. He heard us.
I know.
And he doesn't deserve to be in office.
I'm just trying to lay out all the issues, and Jason could sit back and done nothing, and these things wouldn't have been there. You know, the Speaker of the House was part of this legislation.
All he had to do was oppose it, and it was dead.
Yeah. Traditionally, you're right. Maybe not. Maybe not in this case. Yes, sir.
He made a statement in the meeting that it was his view that there was enough power coming even out of the valley to get this thing done. He would rather have it legislated here, locally, where he was kind of partnering into a thing where state was going to stick on him, but he was going to correct it the best way he could.
Right.
Now, he did use the term private property right. It may have been misapplied.
Right.
In fairness, you know, to the situation of Lonnie.
Sure.
But was it a true and factual statement of his that he saw it coming no matter what, and he went ahead and volunteered to be a part of it?
I think that's a true statement. I think that's a true statement. Look, Senator Campbell issued the first piece of legislation to start off with Senator. Traditionally, no state senator or state representative is going to support special districts without local consent and local support of that senator or that representative. That's traditionally how our legislature works. This was a unique situation, and you know, typically we wouldn't even gotten out of committee without local support. And we went and testified at the legislature on 2 different occasions. And it was very obvious this was going through. I've testified at a lot of committee hearings, and you can tell when elected officials are paying attention and when he's not paying attention, and when he has his mind made up or she has his mind made up. And this was going through. Y'all have to ask Jason if he would have not supported the legislation or sponsored the legislation if it would have died.
Before he would start any development over there, the county commissioners have to approve his development.
That's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Any development that may occur does have to go through county's plating process. And if it occurs on 1,000 acres that is within the city's ETJ, we'll have to go through processes at the city. Now, talking about private property rights, that is where all our private property rights are preserved, is going through that plating process. We have rules and regulations. You know, the simple thing is cities can do whatever they want in the state of Texas as long as the state doesn't specifically forbid it. As long as the state says you cannot do that, cities can write any law they want to write. County government is different in Texas. It's actually part of the state. And we can only do what the state specifically allows us to do, what they empower us to do in development regulation. We have very good rules and regulations here in Hays County. We have some of the best in the state. But if somebody comes into the county process and abides by those rules and regulations, y'all can all show up to Commissioner's Court. This whole subdivision can show up. Y'all can tell me you're never going to vote for me again, that I'm the worst county commissioner in the world. I'm going to approve that plat because that is where the law is, and that is where an individual private property right is. And if we don't like it, what we do is we try to change the rules and the regulations to better suit our community. But that is the private property right issue, not the creation of special districts. That's quite funny, actually. Me and my colleagues across the region talking about this and talking about with others at the legislature. I mean, they all, it was quite humorous that there was actually a state senator using it for reasons for a special district. Yes?
And kind of related to all the powers, governmental powers that come with it, you said something about representation. So if they develop a couple cities next door, then that comes with new Texas House representation, or what did you mean by that?
I'm not quite following you. No, I mean you're.
I'm just wondering
in other words, when you have to go, if you're going to develop that land or any piece of property, you have to go through the county's plating process, which there are very clear rules and regulations that you meet and you follow those rules and regulations. By law, we're constitutionally required to approve that plat. That is your private property rights once you've met those rules. Right?
Okay, I was thinking about way back earlier in the conversation, we were talking about not just what a MUD can do, and I thought you might have mentioned that it can create a new representative district. So I'm just wondering if Jason goes, oh well, they kicked me out here, I can just go get a job with LaMantia over there.
The legislature creates that, and
and not the MUD.
Right.
Okay.
That's why y'all have half your subdivision. I know some got upset at me, but you have to go vote down the street because half your subdivision's in Congressional 21, the other half is in Congressional 25. Either the beginning or the end, however you want to look at it, of congressional districts. Starting here goes all the way to Fort Worth, and from Indy here goes all the way to San Antonio and to downtown Austin. So that's why some of y'all have to split up and go vote in different places this time. But no, I mean, that's all set population and
so the increased population could come into play, but again, that would be the Texas legislature as a whole doing the redistricting. Okay, all right, every 10 years.
And it could have an impact on size of precinct 3 of the county commissioner's position because we have to divide the county out proportionally, basically amongst our precincts. But we just went through redistricting about a year ago.
Okay.
So it's
So LaMantia will be able to create a whole new redistricting on there.
Man, who knows what that guy can do?
I think we've seen what he can do.
Yeah. It's I was just really disappointed in the process and quite honestly using politics to try to make an issue look like a private property right issue, knowing good and well, or should know good and well. That's not.
That's called marketing.
Yeah, I have a real issue.
That's called lying to the public is what it's called.
And
So how will we know if he decides to go ahead and start? Will we just hear construction going on out there, or how will we find out?
If they decide to develop that subdivision, y'all will be notified by the county. And we have public notices in our subdivision rules and regulations. And the subdivision is close enough, particularly the backside, to be within that notification area.
So the only way it will affect us who are on that backside will be we'll have neighbors now.
Right.
They can't infringe on our property.
Right. That's right.
I mean, neighbors are going to, not that I know. I don't want to, it was just so nice having all that open and quiet back there.
It's a beautiful place.
Mr. Conley?
Yes, sir.
So really our only fear of the road mission trail going through the county.
Yes. And the county's had a pretty long-standing policy of not going through existing subdivisions, and our current plans adhere to that as well. So I mean, that would be a very interesting day for Commissioner's Court dealing with an issue like that. But I honestly don't think I'll have to worry about as far as traffic running in
I have another question. One of the comments I made to both Isaac and to Campbell, again, was back in the early days of this whole process was, what can we do to turn that property into a state park?
Yeah.
And neither one of them would respond. So my question to you is, what can we do to turn that into a state? Have a state go by the man?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's really that simple. I mean,
it's over.
It's not that simple. But
no, it really is that simple. I mean,
well, now he'd sell it for $25 million.
You can buy the ranch.
That's what
Instead of $5 million.
I was asking
It's off from 65.
what do I need to do to go to the state and get them to buy it?
Typically, how it works is local governments, like your county government, pass a bond like we did years ago, and we'll use that money and leverage that money with state and federal dollars to make a purchase. And you're probably talking $60 million about that place.
Well, how much does Wimberley ISD, tack us for when they go for bonds?
No, right.
Huh?
I didn't hear your whole.
I said, how much does Wimberley ISD tack us for when they go for their bonds?
Right. I don't know. You have to ask
I mean, come on.
board members.
I think you'd probably get some support out of it. If you
I pay the taxes though. And that's typically how it happens. The state right now doesn't have any money in their parks fund. They're doing their best to keep their doors open on the parks that they have in the state. Years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, there was a revolving fund that locals could match. In fact, we used a lot of our county tax dollars to match to do things like Blue Ball Park, for example. And Senator Whitworth helped us out, and we brought in $2.5–3 million of state money for Blue Ball Park. Leveraged another $3 million of local money to do so, and raise some private money. But it's usually a hodgepodge of different things. To buy a ranch of that size and of that area, that would be a huge undertaking. If he was willing, and he just wanted to, and the family just wanted to really preserve the ranch, then what would be more realistic is to put a large conservation easement over the property, and that would get the dollars more manageable. Say $15–18 million, probably realistically, over that whole ranch. And we couldn't all go out there like it was a public park, but the ranch would be preserved in perpetuity. It would be protected forever. So that's really the two different things that you're talking about.
And you probably wouldn't put a MUD on a property that you had any intentions of doing that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
99.9%. I've never seen anybody ask for MUD that wasn't interested in development. It's the whole reason why the laws were created.
Or selling.
Right. And again, it's
To get it
the power of the district is the municipal financing. They get to go out onto the public market just like any other public entity. And you're borrowing money for almost nothing right now. And instead of, traditionally, like this way this subdivision was built, somebody bought this place, they platted it, they put money into the roads and everything else, the utilities, and each one of y'all paid for that when you bought your lot, and that money's there. And whoever that was, I forget who it was, slowly gets their money back. MUDs, you're able to front a lot of that money, and you're able to get a lot of that money back really fast.
I've got a question. Even if he decides to develop it, despite what he says, how quickly could he do it? Just a ballpark time frame to start.
He's probably already got an architect working on it right now.
If he woke up tomorrow and said, I want to start developing this ranch, 2 years. Easy. 2 years. It'd take you at least 6 months to get through the county planning process.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to design things and do all that stuff prior to that. So it'd probably be a year coming up with your plans and getting your plans approved, and then 6 months to get everything organized, and then go out and build. That's what I would say. When you have that type of capital, you can do a lot of things. You have that much money.
But realistically,
apparently even by government.
Realistically, I don't believe the family themselves are going to develop them.
yeah, but if he does like 16,000 plots or whatever, they're not all going to sell out.
No.
I mean, we're talking years for this to play out.
Something that will build out, but I mean, look, Lady living over here, we are third fastest growing county in the United States of America.
That's
I have another question. Does the Commissioners Court look at an environmental protection or environmental study to say they look at endangered species out there?
No, sir, we don't have the authority to the federal government's the only one that can enforce that.
You could ask the landowner to provide that study for you to make a decision.
You have to get approval. You'd have to get approval from Fish and Wildlife. You'd have to get some approvals from TCQ, and you'd have to get approvals from Hayes County.
You'd have to move the ranch to Austin. Move around here.
Maybe we can find an endangered species and plant it over there. So
Some with three heads walking around over there.
I think the lady at the River Authority, she quoted
Somebody's told me there's like an
she
endangered
said
salamander in the river there.
The reality is, you've got a very wealthy guy, very wealthy, and he's purchased all the government. He gets whatever the hell he wants.
I totally see that.
Look, it would not be easy.
Stupid representatives who believe that wealthy people are smarter than the rest of
It
us.
makes it much easier. It's almost impossible unless you just wanted to spend a ridiculous amount of money to develop that ranch into something that looked like Belterra without the mud. Now with the mud, well, that's a good. Belterra's a mud. Y'all know what Belterra is? That's a classic mud development. The mud pays for all those pools and amenities and everything else, and that's how they pay for all that. That's how they get paid back. With the mud, it makes it much more possible, but still, you're talking about a very difficult place to develop. I mean, it's the amount of infrastructure that would have to go into that place and the amount of money that would have to go into that place is significant. But again, it's a beautiful ranch, and you could have a huge park amenity. Basically, have your own private park out there on the Blanco River that could potentially be a draw one day to a bunch of $250,000 and $400,000 homes, young families looking to move to an area like that. Again, I'm glad this legislation got amended. My big issue was with the process and with the misinformation of telling people it's about private property. I don't think the people we represent up here are that naive to understand what it was really about.
Yeah, well, let's go around the room one time for one final question. Susan?
Well, my question is maybe humorous or maybe sad, but how did he come up with Needmore?
I have no idea.
That's a great question.
He's answered. My questions are answered.
Marissa?
Fine.
I'm fine.
Just throw him out of office. That's all I got to say.
Well, we all have the option to vote. So.
That's it. That's all I'm asking. Just to vote against.
Okay, I've got kind of a related question. A few years back, I did a bunch of engineering work for Mr. O'Quinn. Now, he had like a core at the ranch, but he was going to spend between $1 and $2 million with a large building and other facilities. Do you know if that ever happened?
No, sir. There's a pavilion there by the river. I don't know if that was there when you were there. There's a pavilion by the river.
How long has it been there? You know?
Probably about 4 years, 5 years. John built a lot of things about 3 or 4 years ago. And I said a lot of things. He built a couple of houses, and a swimming pool and a pavilion. But that was the extent of it. I mean, I'm sure he did probably spend $2 million, but that's the extent of what's back there.
Okay.
You have anything else, got time?
Well, what would be the effect of a change to the amendments that we know? I mean, is it possible to go back and to have those amendments that were successfully introduced by intervention?
Next legislative session, yes, sir. Sure could be.
And could it be slipped into any big bill?
It could be.
Yeah.
We're not safe.
No, you're not safe.
Sandy, Rick? Paul?
Good.
Tina?
I'm good, thanks.
Mike?
Good.
Ronnie G? Linda Frank? Larry?
I don't have a problem with a recall.
Is there anything else going on in the community or the county y'all like to talk about on here?
Okay, can you name anything about the eyesore on 12?